I talk a lot about all the things that Donald Trump's doing that people aren't seeing. This is something that he's doing that I don't think people are seeing, but it's not very good for him. As a matter of fact, it's the reason why he was fuming at this reporter asking him about it.
Everyone March today in California ruled that your deployment of National Guard troops to Los Angeles was illegal. Do you have any response?
Well, it was a radical left judge, but very importantly, what did you not tell me in that question or statement that you made? Pretty much of a statement, I think.
Well, I was asking for your response.
No, you didn't say what the judge said, though. The judge said, but you can leave the 300 people that you already have in place. They can continue to be in place. That's all we need. But why didn't you put that as part of your statement? Because the same judge ruled exactly as you said, except the judge said that you could leave the 300 people that you already have in place. They can stay, they can remain, they can do what they have to do. Thank you very much, everybody.
Donald Trump didn't like that question. Maybe because he's a fucking loser. Maybe because he lost a court ruling about what he thought was a legal rule to send the National Guard into whatever damn city that he wants. Specifically, cities that are run by mayors and states that are run by governors that he just doesn't like, because, he's one of those presidents that thinks he can just be a fascist and no one will do anything about it. As a matter of fact, one of those governors of that state that he invaded and was later told that he's doing it illegally, Gavin Newsom, who's been trolling the hell out of this guy, said Donald Trump loses again, in all capitals. The courts agree. His militarization of our streets and use of the military against U.S. citizens is illegal. Weird how that works. Americans used to know that. But, now too many of them are like, Donald Trump can do whatever the hell he wants because I kiss his ass. More. Here's something else. That's one L. Let's start counting the L's that Donald Trump has been racking up lately. That's L number one. You guys want to hear about L number two? Here's L number two. It's from Aaron Reichlin Melnick. He posts a lot about these illegal issues that Donald Trump is going through. Here's the latest. A new federal court just ruled that Trump's invasion proclamation banning asylum at the border is unlawful. Judge Moss vacates agency guidance implementing the proclamation, issues declaratory relief that the order is unlawful and enjoins its implementation. Remember that whole invasion talk? Whole talk about how we're being invaded by all these brown people because they're scary, and therefore he can do whatever he wants as far as his mass deportation policies. That was ruled unlawful as well too. Here's one more post from Aaron Reichlin Melnick. A Trump Day 1 executive order invoked the travel ban authority in the Constitution to declare that an invasion was happening and that all migrants must be turned away without being permitted to seek asylum under the laws. These are asylum seekers, bro. Do you remember when he was running for office and he said he's going after all the violent drug addicts and criminals and drug dealers and human traffickers, as long as their names are not Jeffrey Epstein or Ghislaine Maxwell? He said Judge Moss here rules that this was not a lawful act. L number 2. You guys want to hear about some more L's? Hey, here's another L. A federal appeals court shot down President Trump's claim that Venezuelan cartels have invaded the U.S., denying the administration's bid to assume sweeping wartime deportation powers under the Alien Enemies Act. This was one of the first ones he went after. In a 2-1 ruling, the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals held on Tuesday that Trump cannot use the 1978, cannot use the 1798 law to deport Venezuelans in Texas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. So now he's losing on the Alien Enemies Act declaration that he made. More about invasions and all those scary brown people. Here's some more quotes. In his invocation, Trump wrote that even though the U.S. is not at war with Venezuela, members of the Tren de Aragua gang have invaded the U.S. at the behest of President Nicolas Maduro, a claim that the CIA and National Security Agency have flatly denied. But he doesn't give a He just does whatever he wants and says invasion, scary, migrants, more. Similarly, the judges assumed that the gang had indeed used drug trafficking as a weapon against our citizens. The judges agreed with him. But again, attempts to weaken a country are not the same as an invasion, is what Judge Leslie Southwick wrote. And she was appointed by, this lib, George W. Bush. Last one about his L on the Venezuelan Alien Enemies Act. This is the last part of that L. We conclude that the findings do not support that an invasion or predatory incursion has occurred. We therefore conclude that petitioners are likely to prove that the AEA was improperly invoked. Are we counting? I think that's L number 3. Ding, the Alien Enemies Act. You guys want to hear another L? Here's more L's for Donald Trump. A federal judge ruled Wednesday that the Trump administration violated Harvard University's First Amendment rights and federal law when it froze nearly $2 billion in federal grants because of the Ivy League school's handling of anti-Semitism on campus. In a victory for Harvard, U.S. District Judge Allison Burroughs blocked Trump's administration officials from implementing or instituting orders freezing the grant funding to Harvard and letters terminating research grants awarded by a slew of federal agencies. Here's L number 4. He's losing on freezing the grants and the federal funding to Harvard because he was mad at them too, because that lib institution actually teaches people things sometimes. Here's more details on this L. Quote, in fact, a review of the administrative record makes it difficult to conclude anything other than that defendants, that's the Trump administration, used anti-Semitism as a smokescreen for a targeted, ideologically motivated assault on this country's premier universities, and did so in a way that runs afoul of the APA, the First Amendment, and Title VI, is what Burroughs wrote. Further, their actions have jeopardized decades of research and the welfare of all those who could stand to benefit from that research, as well as reflect a disregard for the rights protected by the Constitution and federal statutes. This was talked about during this whole thing when he was trying to pull this off. There's lots of research, medical research, and disease research, things that happen at many universities that are funded from federal grants because, that helps with that whole thing that RFK Jr. doesn't want happening anymore, is that people living here in this country and us understanding how we can fight back against sometimes these things that kill us. But he just wanted to reject that funding because he doesn't like them. And he wanted to piggyback off of anti-Semitism, even as if he's not an anti-Semite. Here's more of this L. I'm actually enjoying this L. This one's a good one. In her ruling, Burroughs called the Trump administration's actions part of a government-initiated onslaught against the school that was much more about promoting a governmental orthodoxy in violation of the First Amendment than about anything else, including fighting anti-Semitism. They blocked it. Here's one last part about this particular loss that he took. There's a boot up his ass. Burroughs said that none of the letters the Trump administration sent to Harvard identified any specific instance of anti-Semitism on Harvard's campus, specified how Harvard failed to respond to any such acts of anti-Semitism in any way that violated Title VI or reflected any effort to follow the Title VI procedural requirements that govern the termination of federal funding. I lost track. Is that L number 5 or was that 4? I think it's 5. All kinds of L's flying around for this idiot because what he thinks is that he can say and do anything he wants. He can create a reality and everyone will just listen to him. And the people that don't listen to him, he'll take their federal funding. And the other people that don't listen to him, he'll send armed troops into your city. And the other folks that listen to him, he'll have arrested. Whatever it is, he's an authoritarian fascist sumbitch who thinks he can run roughshod over this country. And sadly, there's several million people who agree with that because they're subservient people too, and they want to live under a ruler. Of course, all these rulers are going to be they're going to be appealed. He keeps talking about how he's going to go to the Supreme Court because he keeps talking about how he's already got that court fixed. They knew everything they would be doing would be illegal. That's why they wanted to make sure ahead of time we have the Supreme Court in place that's going to do everything I want them to do. Because when these lower courts rule against me, I'm going to call them libs, even though they're not all appointed by anybody that's lib. They're lib, radical, lunatic judges. Now I'm going to go to my Supreme Court, which he also feels he can control too.